Hello, everyone. We are now preparing the debate for quarters final in the Uddc. The teams already choose how position are going to be in the debate with numbers. Suit up, choose the number 4, so they are closing opposition. Then COVID choose the number 2, who is opening government. UNISA choose the number 1, who is opening opposition, and finally the number 3 choose Quareenteen, who is closing government. So already the teams choose their positions in the debate, and now going to wait the motion. Now teams are preparing, and the motion for this debate is this House, as a black police officer in the USA, will resign for their job. Teams have 15 minutes to prepare, and then the debate starts.
What? So my name is Smee. I'll be chairing this round. I would like to ask my panelists to present. Can you hear?
Yes, I can. So my name is Massimo Rodriguez. I'll be the panelist for the debate.
Okay, and we have another panelist. Jess. Our second panelist is mute for the moment.
I'm Jessica, and I'm the panelist.
Thank you, Jessica. So before we debate, I just want to check with everyone, are you okay with being streamed or not? If anyone has an issue with it, please say it now before we. So, Alexia, you don't want to be. Okay. No, so it's fine for you. So just react, please, if you have. Okay, I'm not hearing any. Just. Okay. Okay, Quareenteens, I'm guessing you're also.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay, perfect. One other thing before starting, please don't. Exactly. Because of possible issues that can have with the connection, so the debate would run as smooth as possible. Now I would like to hear opening government who's speaking. Opening government.
Good day, Chair. This is Krabedze. Do you hear me? I'll be speaking first to OG.
Yes, okay. Perfect. Thank you. And then Sarah is back.
Yeah, sorry, a second.
Okay. Thank you very much. Opening opposition, who's speaking? Okay. Closing government, who's
Maxwell speaking first, then Afsal speaking second.
okay? Thank you. Who's speaking first? Alexia. Thank you very much. The motion reads: this House, as a black police officer in the US, would resign. So without further ado, I would like to call the Prime Minister to open the place on the side of the government.
Chair, before I start, I wanted to ask, will you be indicating the time within the group chat?
Let's in the chat. I will put when the first minute ends and when the 6th minute ends.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, panel, it is very important to understand what is currently happening within the system of the police right now in the United States. We have a problem, and that is why we believe that black police officers should actually resign from being part of the police. And I'll show you why within my speech, and I'll show you why we actually win this debate as OG. Okay, panel, a quick characterization. The problem that we have within the system, within the system of the police system actually advocates white dominance. Like in instances when a black individual is killed by a white officer, they don't take it actually serious. They brush it off. Now we see this problem actually recurring within the number of years, and the most recent case being George Floyd being killed by a white police officer. Now we see how the police actually tried protecting this police officer by not actually taking this case serious, but then they only started taking it serious after people started actually rioting and protesting and being we are against this. Now, panel, this is the problem that we have with the policies there. It actually perpetuates white dominance, and this is something that you don't want actually to have within a democratic state, because it is against democratic principles, and we don't want to find ourselves in the problem again. Okay, so panel, you need to understand that the structure of the police, the structure that exists there is actually a structure that actually supports white people. That's why we see a problem within the USA today that a lot of black people are not even in a higher position within the police. And this is a problem. This is a problem we need to address, and this is the problem we need to fix, because a lot of black people are being structurally excluded from higher positions when it comes to like the police force. They are just being, when it comes to police force, and we know that there are upcoming cases of racism that have happened within the police force where white individuals actually called black individuals nigger and like other racist remarks that these individuals like are not for, and that is why we need that these individuals should actually step down and resign from being police officers. Now, we're not just saying that they should step down in silence and be like, okay, I'm going back, I'm gonna sit, but we believe that stepping down is a form of a statement. They'll be standing to government and be like, we want to see change, we want to see this whole like police structure being changed and these policies being changed, and the old policies actually support white dominance to being like done away with, and these new policies to actually be like new policies that actually support black, white, Indian, and Chinese like also being taken into consideration, because we don't want the point where like black individuals also like support also like part of this white dominant structure that does not actually support them. We feel that it is a problem for them also like to be there like as individuals, because they are there, they are working, but then they're not being acknowledged as individuals, like as police officers. They're not being fully acknowledged as police officers to be given like positions within the whole police force. I'll take the pure eye from closing.
Is the police system inherently racist?
Now, Penny, you need to understand, I told you there's a problem within the whole policy, within the whole policies and the structure of the police force within the USA. We believe like the problem that we have is like they are structurally excluding like black police officers from this, they're structurally excluding black officers from being part like of higher positions, like being the commander of the station and everything. So at this point, we don't believe that this individual should actually be part of this, because the police force does not actually allows them to grow. We believe that them leaving this and resigning from the force is a form of protest, the form of showing that hey, we want change. Now, we're not saying that they should just like leave in silence, but we're saying that they should also go further and also go and put like what is this legal action, take legal action and be like, hey, we want to see silence. We want to see like change. They should go out and be like, okay, we want like legal action to be taken against against the whole policy, against the whole structure of the police academy, because it's a problem that we have within our society, within the society and the police force that actually perpetuates like white dominance and actually puts the white individual within a pedestal. Now, why will this actually be like now, why does it actually be like beneficial for the whole society? Now, one, we know that how white police officers actually like had like killed a lot of black people and like gone away with it because they are being protected by this white dominance structure that is there by the police. Is there by the police. We believe that at a point where black individuals actually like step down and challenge like the system that happened and challenge like the whole policy that happens. We believe that when they start resigning, politicians, lawmakers, and policymakers will actually be like, okay, maybe it's time to sit down and actually take into consideration what's happening, and change these policies to make sure that these policies are actually policies that are suitable for everyone. At a point where these policies are actually suitable for everyone, it will mean that each and every single police officer's mindset will actually change and be like, okay, I'm equal with certain police officers, I'm equal with everyone, and so forth. I should actually treat everyone the same within society. We've seen how they brutally killed individuals within society. We've seen how they brutally like killed George Floyd, 4 white police officers, because they knew that hey, even if I do anything that is harmful to this individual, the system and the structure that actually runs within this whole police society will actually work for me. I'll take the pure eye from opening.
System is one that to oppress blackness, then how does removing themselves from it solve the problem?
Okay, I'll touch on within my speeches. I'll go further. Now, panel, I did tell you that one, if it means that this individual will be stepping down and resigning, they won't be doing this like in silence and be like, okay, I'm just resigning. But they will also show a form of protest, and will also like go seek legal action to actually like challenge the system and be like, we find the system very problematic. We don't see the use of these black individuals, black police officers being part of the system that actually depresses them and actually takes away the human dignity of these individuals, and actually shows them that they are not like, and actually tells them that they are not better than white individuals. We don't see the use of them being part of this. We don't see the utility of them actually fighting the system being from the inside. But we believe that the moment they step out, the moment the masses step out, a lot and millions of police officers within the United States, black officers in the United States step out and be like, okay, we want to shatter this system, we are stepping out. Government will see that there's a problem, lawmakers will see there's a problem, and they will want to intervene and be like, okay, what is the problem? And they will also take legal action to actually defy the system, actually defy the system by taking legal actions and be like, okay, we have a problem with the system that is there, and it will mean actually this that lawmakers will be like, okay, we'll revive the system because we know that they have tried being in there, they've tried doing petitions against this individual, they've tried going the legal route, but it does not work. But we believe at the moment they actually step down and resign and be like, I don't want to be part of this. If this is not going to be for me, then it is going to be like government is going to listen. Now, what they tell them is that government is going to listen because a lot of people within the world and a lot of people in society will notice that, hey, what is happening? And people will start protesting and be like, okay, this cannot happen to black individuals. Now, what I tell you now, one, I told you how the system is already problematic and actually supports white dominance. And secondly, I told you that the utility will get that these police officers will not actually go out within being all quiet, but they'll go out actually taking legal action and also protesting in a way. And I also told you that how this will actually be like of utility to society, that these white individuals police officers will stop actually stop actually killing a lot of black people because they'll know that,
Your time.
Okay, thank you. With these few words, I thank everyone.
Thank you for your speech. And now I would like to call Leader of Opposition to open the case on their side.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, everyone. Can I ask if this is audible?
Yes.
All right. I'm just finding my... Okay, I'm ready, Chair. You can tell me when to start.
Whenever you're ready, I start the time.
Okay. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Panel, opening opposition today firmly believes that protests are valid insofar as they give change. We think that what's important is for us to understand that the way in which we protest ought to be the one that is far more likely to get our voice heard, one that is far more likely to give us the change that we seek and desire. Opening opposition will argue today that change for Black Americans comes by virtue of them being included in halls of power and not by them excluding themselves from halls of power where they're able to make decisions and where they're able to change systems. We think that Black police officers who are within the policing system in the United States are our only form of power that we think can hear our voice and that we think can institute changes from within the system. Opening government and also closing government has to do better to show us why this is not the case. We think that the burdens that we ought to prove from opening opposition today is why this action is far more likely to worsen the outcome of Black people and why we think this is wrong in principle. We think that the burden for government is to show why Black officers resigning from their police jobs is far more likely to give like the change, Black people the change that they want today, right? And we think that there's a lot of inconsistencies that come from opening government speech. We think that the largest being in that there is the large logical link panel between the solution that they propose and how that solution actually gets to give the change. The best thing that they took to us about is why when police resign, politicians will immediately notice that Black police officers are resigning. Maybe let's do something about it and create change. We think that this laughs at the face of the thousands or at the face of the numerous Black people that have died at the hands of police people. Because we think that these are the same politicians who were in office when Trayvon Martin died, when Breonna Taylor died, when Tamir Rice died, when Eric Garner died, when Breonna Taylor died, and when George Floyd died. We think that at the point at which these politicians never sought to do something about that change, when all these individuals died, we don't see why they'll suddenly want to change simply because Black police officers, who are very few in number actually, are already resigning. We think that they lose that debate if they take that line of argumentation. What do we bring you from opening opposition? Let's talk about 3 things in particular. Firstly, the burden shift. Number 2, model police. Number 3, what happens when there's complete loss of trust in the policing system. And number 4, Noltan is going to be talking to you about how quitting jobs comes with consequences, particularly for Black people. On the issue of burden shifting, We argue today that the record for Black police officers is clean. We think that the numerous number of abuses that occur in the United States of America have been recorded to have been like at the hands of white police officers. We think that that is something that is we think that that is something that is quite bad, right? And we think that because Black people don't have this kind of record, they ought not to incur upon themselves the burden of quitting because they're not the actual kind of police officers that the entire protest is about in the first place, right? That's why we say Black Lives Matter, because we believe that it most the white police officers that like inherit that like carry out these harms against black bodies. We think that that in of itself is something that is bad. I'll take all POIs at 5. We think that therefore black officers ought not to have a burden that they haven't brought upon, ought not to incur for themselves a burden that they haven't brought upon themselves. Because we think that this is valuable in that it shifts conversations, right? From the structure of how it shifts conversations from how it can carry out structural reforms within the law enforcement to being whether black people ought to remove themselves. We think that that is something that is the second thing we'll talk to you about is model police, right? We think that for change to occur, there has to be a model through which we to aspire to look like, right? We think that black police officers within the police like units have been that kind of model as far as the record shows. We think that we ought to recognize here, panel, the very strategic value of this, right? That black police officers are a model specifically because of how black people are treated in the United States. We think that it's a very good thing for black people to actually be looked upon as the kind of people who are able to carry out their duties right. And we think that that's something that's inherently valuable to the black community. The point at which black police officers start to quit their jobs, either be it in protest or just because of whatever reason government might bring to you. We think that we forego the advantage and the leverage that we have as a black community of being the model of people who can actually carry out or do their jobs right, or from being like the kind of people that we need to have in this policing system. And we think that this is something that is bad and this is something that is a minus for the movement. This becomes a minus because it disables us from attempting to change the system from within, right? We think that when these police officers quit, we forego this ability. And when we forego this ability, that means that black people are most likely going to suffer for elongated times, right? I'll take a POI from close.
Hello, POI. So if I am part of a group and individuals from that group are killing people, even if I don't partake in that killing directly, am I still in the right?
We argue that you are still in the right because the entire case is premised on the fact that black people who are protesting are so dumb in order to see who is actually fighting them. We think that the movements are quite like clear that the number of police officers who are carrying out these attacks against black people are white police officers. We don't think for a second that black people who are protesting for their lives that are being looted every day cannot tell the difference between black and white police officers. We think that this is something that is quite clear. You are still in the right because you still need law enforcement, but a good law enforcement. The point at which you give the kind of good law enforcement that we want, then we think that that is good. Because you're not fighting against the police, we're fighting against the conduct of the police. You ought to prove to us today why the conduct of black police officers is one that is quite harmful in this regard. We think you'll fail at that principle. But also, let's talk to you about what happens when there's complete loss of trust within the police. Because we think that the point at which black officers resign from their duties as police officers, then there's like, it allows the greater black community to lose trust within the larger police force. Because there isn't any other people who understand them. There isn't anyone that we trust within the police force anymore. We think that this is something that becomes problematic because even if the police system or the policing system is going to be reformed, that lack of trust is something that the black community never has, right? We think that you forgo the ability to rebuild, you forgo the ability to mend wounds, you forgo the ability to make things right. Panel, what is important for you to understand in this debate is that the people who incur this burden ought to be the ones that actually carry out this burden. We think it's important for black police officers to remain within the police force, to be model police, to be the kind of police people that we look up to. We ought not to allow them to retire because we don't see how this in of itself is going to solve the problem. But I think that they make good models, they make ground for how we can like sort of reform the police force in its entirety. From opening opposition, we're proud to win this debate.
Thank you for your speech. And now I would like to call Deputy Prime Minister to further the case on their side. Yes. Would one of the debaters? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
You are audible. We hear you.
Yes. Yes, no problem. You're welcome. Speech in 3. We have heard from side opposition, and what they're basing their whole argument on is the fact that Black officers are needed in the police system to establish trust between the Black community, number one. And basically what they're saying is change can only come from the inside. This is what their whole argument is about. Now I'm going to start my rebuttal, but where mainly most of my rebuttal is going to be embedded into my speech. I will do a matter extension of what my first speaker said, and then I'll go into my new matter. What I'm going to prove to you today is how, first of all, protesting, which is the status quo, has not brought enough change, and how we believe that what we do, which is make Black officers resigning from their job, not only brings change into, but it brings in a permanent change, right? They came and they've told us now that change, and that if we're removing Black officers, and we're kind of like casting blame onto Black officers for what the white officers are doing, and we believe that that is not true, that is not right. First of all, protesting brings a change, but like I've said, it is only a temporary change. Does not mean that they are actually in the wrong or with the white officers in the violence that they are doing, but we certainly believe that them staying in that institution and staying in that organization that is only, supporting white officers. Look at the protests and everything that is happening right now. You have Black police officers who actually had to go and stand in front of Derek Chauvin's house, to protect his house. You have Black officers who need to push people from protesting and arrest people who are actually protesting. Person, that's another Black person protesting for another Black person. So at the end of the day, because as a Black officer, even if you do not agree with Derek Chauvin or anything that has happened, you still have to be there as a police officer. You still need to protect his house. You still need to push protesters and arrest other Black people when what they're actually protesting for is right. And we believe that this is not what we want. Right now, like I mentioned, change. Protesting brings about, let's say, a few results of something that you want, and then it goes right back to the status quo. And when so many other Black people died, and what happens is not going to be right now. Is going to be on the pressing that we're going to resign until certain policies are put in place. This way of supporting white police officers and the things they do. Policies like fining police officers on police brutality and strict legal action. And we're saying that as police officers, we're only going to resign until we see these things, these differences, because this is what we believe is going to bring in a permanent change. Now, a lot of my matter is going to be on the benefits to society, right? Now, agreed with us that establishing trust and compliance from Black officers to the Black community is very important, right? And we believe that this point is extremely important. We're actually glad that they agree with us on this, right? Because what we get when Black officers resign from their job are very, very beneficial to the Black community and to the important in the relationship that the Black community has with the police, right? They're beneficial for going undercover, for going into places that I see your eyes, I'll take them later. Not be able to go into. They're important for establishing trust and compliance and improving the relationship.
that very important part of trust and compliance is taken away. This needs to be improved. The relationship between the officers and the community needs to be improved, because if it doesn't, the country as a whole loses out. The view that the rest of the world has in America, have only white people in the force, police brutality, the international relations, it's going to mess up their tourism, it's going to mess up foreign system, which is where they get so much money from. It's going to mess up that aspect, which is very important to the government, which is why we believe that if the Black people step out and no changes are done, community and the police keeps on getting worse, it's going to call the stepping out, resigning of Black officers is going to be so important, because then the government has to realize that now we have a bigger problem on their hands if we step out, and we now start to lose on so many levels, okay?
I'm a black officer who is a feminine. I resign from my job. What does my life look like after?
If as a Black officer you're going to resign from your job to make a statement and for a certain time until certain things are put in place, that is better for you than being a Black officer who 2 years down the line, your child, because now you're a family man, is going to get shot by a white policeman because there is no difference being made, and because you did not get up, take a stand, and resign. And now 2 years later, your child is going to be the next hashtag that we're all saying justice for. So we're saying, as a Black police officer, I would rather down, and then years later down the line, the same thing keeps on recurring, which is what we have seen in today's society. That is the status quo. Protesting changes nothing. It's only for a temporary time, and then after that, everything goes right back to the same way it was. Americans have been protesting police brutality for years. So we believe that this makes a bigger statement, a statement that the government cannot ignore. And until certain policies are put in place, like fines and strict legal action, that is only when these officers will come back into the force. How better, as a better form of activism than protesting, and it's also going to make a louder voice to the government because of the benefits that this Black officer having would resign, because of the benefits that it's going to have to the society and to the Black community, and also have with the Black community. And that is why the government cannot ignore if they decide to resign. As this, we have proof why we decide to win today. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. And now I would like to call Deputy Leader of Opposition to close the top half of the table. Yes, just confirmation also from lose every right to any sort of employer benefit of Black police officers responsibility of resigning from their job. The United States government to then take them back as police officers when they feel like specific reforms have been made. But more so than anything else, those very reforms from the United States government, because they have no standing by which to challenge the state. Charitable. So they tell us a couple of things. Ability on the part of black officers, because when they remain within the system and don't remove themselves from it, they place themselves in a position where they form part of the system that then oppresses black people. A couple of things here. The first one is in the point of information that you get from Zibusiso, where he loses his job and has no alternative income. Tells you that there's a very limited amount of choice that exists for these individuals, especially in America, when they lose their jobs as black people, because there's a lot of systematic oppression outside of just the police system that exists for black individuals within these spaces. It is marginally worse for them to lose their jobs because it places them in an even greater level of vulnerability in the existence, the point where they can't access any sort of mechanism of being able to fund their existence within those spaces, especially when already there are several issues with the welfare system within the American state. We don't think that this is something that makes anything better for the black community, but more so, it makes it marginally worse for the officers themselves. We don't get any sort of justification from the opening government as to why this is something that we ought to accept. The second thing that they tell us is this idea that, well, they think that these officers have to take up the responsibility to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. First thing, Zibusiso gives you quite a lot of analysis about why people who are protesting in America right now don't necessarily see these individuals as being, firstly, an enemy to them, but secondly, they have a lot of understanding in terms of how it is that they interact with them as black individuals. But more so than anything else, it tells you that the system that they exist within is one that allows white officers to be able to carry out atrocities and then remain within the system and have protections. This is where the problem lies, and not necessarily with these black officers. We don't think that they ought to take strife at the point where they're not necessarily even the problem. But secondary to that, we tell you that and these particular officers, we think that this is a one that the black community ought to be able to leverage, or rather that they could be able to leverage at the point where we utilize it through mechanisms of, firstly, one, allowing these individuals to be able to do the job that allows them to be able to protect these black individuals within their societies. This is through firstly, I'll take you in a second. This is through firstly things like when they pull individuals over, they don't necessarily exhibit the same sort of violence that white officers do. But secondly, we think that the kind of interaction that they have with these individuals is one that we value because it allows them to be able to show a more humane side of police or of law enforcement. This is something that we value because they become a model for what policing ought to be. Sure.
The case of your argument of them being a model rests on the premise that the police structure in the USA want to do better. They want to be better for the African American community. But given that they don't give a more about them, how does that actually change on your side of the house?
As black officers themselves are the better of the kind of police system that exists there. What it rests on is that we need to have that better police system that allows those individuals to be able to access what is better in those instances. We think here what we allow you to do is to be able, firstly, to counter the already existing sort of violent narrative that exists within the police system in such a way where there's a direct response from within. That's one that we actually value. But more so than anything else, we don't see any sort of change within the system that you bring about, specifically when it does absolutely nothing to respond to the kind of systematic issues that exist within the police system right now. We think the only way you're able to effectively respond to these things is to deal with the systematic issues that exist within the police force. We don't necessarily see the change coming as a result of the resignation of these individuals, but more so than anything else, we think there are a couple of things that we need to deal with before I got into fully on violence here is one that's specifically on the government of the United States. It's one that they utilize through manipulating systems in order for white officers to get away with crimes that they commit. We don't necessarily think that this is one that is going to change by virtue of black officers being. You entrench the monopoly that they already have on violence that's already skewed towards whiteness and allow for a system that is already entrenching very specific oppressions on individuals continually do so. We think that the structural reforms that we're looking for here are structural reforms that change the ability of these individuals to manipulate systems to allow themselves to be able to carry out atrocities without being able to face any sort of direct response. We think here, the kind of demands that individuals are making through protest are things like hold these officers accountable. These are far more reasonable requests than asking people to remove themselves from their livelihood, than asking people to take a burden that isn't necessarily theirs, especially at the point where they aren't the actor that is in the wrong. And thirdly, by placing a weird sort of burden Black American on these individuals to take up this thing. We think that firstly, being Black and unemployed in America is something that is marginally worse than being an officer within America. But secondly, we think that this is not an advisable form of protest, especially at the point where it seeks to make these individuals that are already on the marginalized side of the American populace even far more vulnerable than they already are by being part of the police force within the American system. We think we are better off for the police officers at the point where we're able to protect their existence, but secondly, we're better off at the point where we demand structural reforms as opposed to this weird scapegoat of asking Black police officers to remove themselves from their jobs. Thank you. Thank you for your speech. I would like to remind the debaters to watch the 6-minute mark because after that, POI.
Hi, ready?
So we're moving. Just a sec.
Oh, sorry.
I know you're patient. So now we're moving on to the second half of the debate, and I would like to ask the impatient member of government to open it here.
Sorry.
Okay.
Panel, note the contradiction in O's case. On the one hand, the police are structurally racist and to a very great extent discriminate against Black people. On the other hand, police, Black people within the system supposedly have the power and the ability and the trust of others to make reforms that improve the system. They were never able to reconcile those two things, and that is why they lose this debate. OG simply say that the police are bad. We're going to say, one, why you make it worse, and two, why the police changes you into a worse individual, and why that is something you should care about in this debate. Therefore, 3 points. First of all, why your presence will be politicized and instrumentalized to weaken the movement. Second of all, why you are turned against your own people and coerced into things like violence. Finally, why you're going to be rejected and ostracized by remaining in the police, and therefore you lose the relationships that make life worth living. First of all, rebuttal. I think the first thing I'll tell you is that there's a principle here because the Black people aren't complicit with police in the system, aren't complicit with actual abuse. We're going to explain to you why you are coerced in the vast majority of cases into actually committing brutality yourself. Second thing, to tell you about getting reforms. Note that they can concede that Black people are a minority within the force and therefore are unable to structurally achieve large amounts of change over time. The fact that they're probably discriminated against within the system means they lack a voice and they lack the kinds of power and promotions that they necessarily need to ensure that the police are less racist. Because I think the point at which you weaken the movement itself when you crack down against, for example, protests and riots, I think these are the kinds of things that are most likely, for example, pressure groups like the middle class, which do control things like the police. So thank you. Third of all, when we talk about trust, I don't think Black people care about whether they have Black or white police killing them in the streets or beating them with batons. I think the trust is actually going to be symmetric on either side of the house. Finally, we tell you you're not going to be able to get a job. I think, first of all, note we have things like stimulus checks that are providing things like money, but also the fact that you're able to get other forms of income, like becoming a security guard. I think these things are far better comparatively to the police because you don't have the same kinds of racist influences that work there. Therefore, first point, why your presence is going to be politicized and used as a propaganda tool. Note that Trump literally posted a picture of a dead Black officer on his social media and was able to use it to weaken the movement. Why? You assist the narrative that is perpetuated by elites like Trump, like media groups like Fox News. That these people, look at the Black people who are able to be caught. Know that these are good Black people. Compare those to all the bad Black people that are rioting and protesting in the streets. Because note, people on the fence are the ones who just ultimately hold power in the sense that they are swing voters at the side who is get into power. At the point at which you give Donald Trump this ammunition, what is he able to claim? At the point at which you are in the movement, and the point at which he's likely to politicize your presence in the police, that is when he's able to claim that the protesters don't adequately resent Black people, that many Black people support the police, that he's able to say, oh yes, there are certain people on both sides. No, on our side, when you leave, you naturally demonstrate that the Black people as a whole are opposed to the movement, but also your very presence in the first place is something that is used and instrumentalized to weaken the movement. I think that is the point when you have a duty to go out of it. Because what is the comparative? OG never explained it. Because I think on our side, you're uniquely able to contribute to discussion and to, for example, political change on our side. And the point the, for example, of the narrative that has gone on about police brutality, you're able to provide unique stories about it because you, compared to the vast majority of Black people who have actually been within the police, you've witnessed it yourself, and therefore you're able to provide compelling and nuanced and emotional characterizations and stories of what actually went on. I think it is on our side when you are best able to speak out. I think that is on our side when you're best able to change certain people's opinions, because many Black people, for example, who don't know about the kinds of narratives and the kinds of coercion that happens within the police, I think that is when you are best able or in a best position to actually change their minds. So ultimately, we were the only side who was able to explain whether or not actually this movement and the movement of, for example, trying to put pressure on elites is changed. Second of all, why you are turned against your own people and psychologically coerced into things like racist violence. Because I want to note that the police, as many people concede, it has an environment that is set up to try and achieve violence and racism. The fact that there are very often conservative environments, for example, they're filled with the kind of individuals who listen to Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson on Fox News, who decry the movement, who, for example, portray Black people in certain cases like as savages and uncivilized people. I think that is the point at which there are other sources of racism within the police. That is when you as an individual are coerced into racism and violence. The fact that there is huge amounts of peer pressure, because at the very beginning, you work in close cohesive teams with other individuals, you necessarily have to submit that the pressure they put on you. But also, know from the very beginning, at the very first moment of training, you are taught to follow orders without question. That you're always forced to follow fitting within a specific role, because that is what is needed within the police. I think the point at which higher ups have incentives to try and crack down on protests as much as possible to please the middle class who constantly has a political capital to, for example, pressure local governments, because those middle class want to protect themselves, they want to protect their private property, they want to use your fear to make you violent. I think that is when you are coerced psychologically into supporting violence, into cracking down on Black people. Because know also how the police is set up, that it is inherently militarized after 9/11, that you were given things like like many cases guns, that you're given armor, that you put in armored vehicles. I think that is the point which that you feel an obligation or a duty to commit violence against your own Black people. I think the fact that you can make this choice in the first place means you probably recognize these issues. But staying within the police is necessarily something that coerces you into making these terrible, terrible choices, to put your community in danger, to put your friends in danger. So I think there's not only a principled harm here. I think there's also the harm of remorse and regret, that later on you could look back and see what happened, that you were on the wrong side of history. The guilt, when the adrenaline wears off, that you see that you were in favor of something and you actively were coerced into punching Black people or fighting rioters. I think that is the worst psychological harm in this debate, and this lasts decades into the future. But finally, why the atmosphere, why necessarily being within this means that you're ostracized. I think the first thing is true within the police, right? That often in your police, you are taught to fear rioters. In many cases, for example, sheriffs or officers have tended to teach you to fear or hate certain racial groups, because that is what necessarily allows you to remain within their position of racism. But also, so I think that's the point which you're likely to be ostracized and rejected within the police itself. That the police who are your friends, who are meant to be your colleagues, never actually trust you. That that the superiors also are likely to discriminate against you, which means you're less like, for example, you're never going to be able to access like promotions, which means you're able to rise through the ranks. But also, more crucially, I think your local community, your family, your friends also ostracize you when you continue to remain in the police during this particularly divisive time. The fact that you are likely going to be viewed as a traitor, the point at which you go out and fight against movements that are usually have vast support among Black Americans, that you put yourself diametrically opposed to the interests of individuals. You support an institution that tells Black people that they should not be able to go out at night without fearing for their lives, even if they're completely innocent. I think at the point at which there is so much more awareness now about the harms of the police, and there's so much more hatred against the police within Black communities, that is when you lose the relationships that make life worth living. That you're rejected by your friends and family, and you lose these very, very valuable and crucial links to other human beings anyway. Very proud to be proposed.
Thank you for your speech. And I would like to call the member of opposition to take place on that side. Please.
Thank you. If everybody hears me, please type yes in the chat so that I can see it.
From my side, you're audible, and there's confirmation.
Okay. Great. So I'm going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So first of all the houses in the debate agree that protest is very important and that the status quo is not the best scenario we want. So first of all, let's imagine one thing. you are a black person in the United States. You want to protest. But we have two possible cases here. First of all, you are a black police officer. And then you protest inside the organization. And not only protest, you bring all your coworkers together and explain them how it is important for you to protest, how it's important for the police, an important institution to keep the population safe, to accept that this institution has made its mistakes and it wants to change. Or we have another scenario, a different one, which you are a black person and you are only one small piece of a person in a crowd. So, in our scenario, we have the best idea because you are a black person and you can change not only the society around you, but you can change the institution itself inside. So, for example, we have seen protests in the United States of police officers as an organization, which they kneeled to the ground and stayed in silence to represent how they do not agree with the idea. Instead of what the government house tries to bring us here, which if you are part of the organization, you have to agree with that idea. But no, the organization, it has been changing. And if you quit, you are not going to change the organization. You're only going to have an empty space. And in the worst case scenario, this empty space will be filled with a white person. So you have not only a member, but you have a member less. And of course, the government tries to bring here that in that space, you are a minority, you have no opportunity, you can be heard, you can be listened, there's a lack of opportunity. Of course, there is racism, but if you quit, there will be no opportunity at all. You're never going to be capable of changing that. I'll take the POI of COVID-19.
Okay, so the first thing we tell us COVID-19, we tell you even though you are in that space, even though you occupy that space, you don't even have like the system is actually defying you. You don't even have like the opportunity to actually like defy this case in any way. You can't even make the change because no one actually will listen to you because you're just a black person within the organization of the police.
Your time for questioning.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about the influence power. Imagine you are a black person and you leave for work. Normally in the United States, the police they work as a couple, so there are two police members in a car. So they go out, and you as a black person, you talk to your coworker. If your coworker makes a racist joke about something, you say, "Look, man, that's not so good. I don't like that." And they try to point how you're being racist. And it's interesting how if you have like trust in that person, you're actually gonna be able of listening to that person. So the government tries to bring here the idea that the person won't be listened, the person will not be heard, but that doesn't happen. Why? Because this person can influence their co-workers and they're gonna change your society around them. How about this person can change? Let's imagine that black officer that actually is on the street is actually going into some calls. This person goes into a suburb in New York City, and in that suburb, this black officer is going to respond to a call by a black family. That black family is going to be itself represented there as a police officer is talking to them. And of course, this person is going to trust that even more because of the empathy of that, and because we have seen statistically that black people won't commit a violence against black people because a racist is not on the table on that. We have a trust relation on that, which is actually bigger if this person actually identified themselves as a member. So talking about why it's important to see a black person, which is a minority on that group. Representation is very important, and there is a lack of black people in those important positions. We haven't seen it in the United States until the 60s. The police were only formed by white people, and white people were the ones who took all the decisions and were the ones who make all the approach. But now we have black people into the institution. Of course, we are not being represented the way we should have been. There is still a lack of minorities. There is still a lack of black people. So why it's important to see itself in a power position? First of all, the population can see itself there with trust. So a black boy that sees a black policeman there actually knows that he can achieve that position. So he actually wants to be there. And of course, we have all the changes we can go with everything. And second of all, it's the empathy for that. Because the black person taking a call from a black family, this person will act on empathy. So that's the reason why the police is so important. The police is an important institution where it's going to bring the society safe, and the society needs to be seen in the police so that they can trust it. And nowadays, of course, the status quo scenario is not the best because we have seen cases of violence, and we're not going to change that by quitting. And it's interesting how the government tries to bring here the idea that there are mechanisms outside and this person can protest outside, but we want to fill in all the positions of powers. We want professors, we want politics, we want journalists, we want YouTubers, we want lawyers, we want judges, and of course, the police is a very important part of that. Because the police is the strongest part of the state. It's the arm that is actually responsible for using force, and it's the one that is closest to what happens in the society itself. So we need to have that arm with the reliability. We want to see police members as black people because the police needs to be what society is. We don't want that 90s stereotype of a police guy, which is just a white old guy that goes into that case. We want black people, we want black women working on that because that's what it needs to be. The police needs to be a mirror of what society itself. We don't want to see only white people working as in supermarkets or low positions because we want them to be seen as an important person. So let's talk about the effect of you in individual person because this debate it's all about individuality. We're talking about one person leaving the organization. So imagine that one person that actually gets 3 calls a day, and if you count that instantly, there will be thousands of people actually being influenced on that. Black people being treated as black important people as they matters. Imagine how this person can influence on their co-workers by just talking to them and approaching to them as a close relationship. A close person talking to a close person. And imagine if that person actually gets a promotion and gets more highlights in the corporation. There will be more black people quitting. Any of this won't happen. So staying, we have a stronger voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your. And I would like to call government to close the case on the government side.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes. Someone else also can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I okay to start?
Whenever you're ready, I start the time.
All right. The implicit assumption in the entirety of the opposition bench that you as a police officer in the system are not changed. Because we posed a question panel. We told you that the point at which you enter the system, you had to conform to the system. That's when you had to behave more like a white guy because you knew if you acted black, the officer wouldn't hire you. You knew if you didn't change your black surname, the officer wouldn't hire you. You knew that this system was racist in its nature. That's why you had to change yourself to join. That's why we told you, panel, in our extension, that this is a system that changes you. This is a system that implicitly corrupts you when every single one of your peers have certain views that you have to conform to and you have to stay silent. This is a system that gives you weapons and feeds you the mentality that it's us versus them. This is a system that tells you that not all blacks are bad, but the ones we're going after are the bad ones. Fundamentally, side of fail to understand that this was a system that changes you and doesn't make you the omnibenevolent person that we get on their side of the house. 3 things in this debate. 1, on which side are you better likely to make an impact? Second, who changes you? And thirdly, in terms of family, where are we more proud of? Okay, first, on which side of the house are you better able to make an impact? Because we told you, and this is important, that on their side of the house, you are politicized. We saw it in the case of Donald Trump when he was able to put a picture of a dead black police officer. Plenty of police officers died, panel, but this is the only picture he posted because this is the only one that benefits his agenda politically. This is so important because hundreds of thousands, even millions of people, panel, are seeing this image. Important aspect here is these are the type of people that are buying into this narrative that's being propagated by the elites of the USA, the elites who ban from the overwhelming criminalization of black people, the elites who don't profit from this riot because it harms their private property, their shop. Fundamentally, from their side panel, this is a system that propagates this idea that black people are, not all black people speak for these rioters, and these rioters are bad, and therefore you should support the police in suppressing them. Why was this so important? Because we think on our side of the house panel, there are people on the fence. And this is so important because notice, panel, we had Black Lives Matter uprisings in the past. But the difference was, panel, in the past, white people will not step moving forward. They were being silent. They thought, I'm not racist, therefore it doesn't matter. I don't have to do anything. In this scenario panel, uniquely, we are seeing people speaking up, saying that it's not enough to just be silent and not be racist. We as white people have to be actively anti-racist. Crucially, these are the people panel who have the social capital, who have the political capital. These are the people we need to change their minds in order to force governments to change. What happens, panel, on their side of the house is when the governments are able to do this, when the state governor of Minneapolis panels turns up to the press conference with a black officer by his side, when the white propaganda machines of the far-right trolls on Twitter use a black officer's photo for their propaganda machine, all of these tools that politicize you as a black officer are able to put these people in the middle who are staying silent and prevent them from making a move. They prevent them from saying yes to some speaking up, or they prevent them from actually not supporting Trump. Fundamentally, on our side, this changes. And this is important because we told you on our side, you are uniquely able to get a platform. OG touched on this. They said you can do activism. We tell you, panel, the media love you. The media give you a platform, the global media, because you literally have unique insights into how this structure works. You have experiences. You have all this valuable information that media companies profit from by platforming you. Therefore, you get a unique platform. Moreover, you are actively a valuable activist and part of this movement. Therefore, you'll likely to get more support. What that meant, panel, is two things. Number one, you are actively able to make a difference in this movement. We think on a human level, we all like to make a difference. We all like to make a difference against injustice. So if this debate is judged on active motivations, the fact that you were able to make a difference is something all humans being wants. Therefore, that's something stands on CD. But more importantly, given that you are a black individual, you know this history that you had to whitewash yourself in this structure, and now all of a sudden you are aware of by virtue of the fact of making this choice, right? Because of this motion. We think the moment you make this active choice, that's when you're proud of yourself. That's when you're able to recognize that I'm helping my ancestors. I'm doing something to go against this grain of history. This fundamentally is the most fulfilling thing you can do. But more of a panel, opening opposition and closing opposition want to talk about your livelihood. We think, look, when you're able to be valuable to the media because there are structural incentives for you to be valuable, you're probably going to get money, right? At the very best, we think these media companies pay you because you're now a value activist. But at the very worst panel, you're still able to get things like crowdfunding, right? Because people in the Black Lives Matter movement idolize you because in fact you made this difficult choice and they want to reward you. We think this is an age of this things panel. So crucially, if this debate is judged on an active basis, we think on our side you get the most fulfillment because you are actively able to make a difference and you're able to stop the politicization panel. Because no, this politicization prevents the structural reform. Because on our side, when politicians can't instrumentalize you, that's when there is no longer tenable. That's when it's not politically viable for them to continue with supporting police officers, these police officers. That's when political capital demands that they change their structures. I'll take it to POY from opening opposition quickly. I'm moving on. Okay, on which side of the house are you able to make an impact? Who changes you? This is so important, panel, because we told you the nature of this system is that from the moment you go to your interview, you are dressing in a manner that you think reflects the ideal version of a Caucasian person, because you notice that there are influence and biases that mean that you'll never get hired. What this means, panel, is that you buy into the idea of others. Because notice, panel, the way these police systems operate, and they say is that, look, they say to people that, look, these blacks are lazy, they don't work. We think you're likely to buy into these things because you ask yourself that, wait a minute, if I broke out of poverty, why aren't these other black people doing it, right? That's when you're more likely to buy into this narrative that is propagated by these horrific racist police, right? This is important, panel, because look, on their side of the house, you continue to be part of this system. You stay silent or you join into the mocking of your peers because you want to be, as human beings, we crave to fit in, right? No one wants to be the only outcast in the workplace. On their side, you continue to do so. You whitewash yourself and you become complicit in this racism. I want to note, panel, one of the police officers who killed George Floyd or around was a person of East Asian authority. That just shows, panel, this is not just white people, this is a systematic problem, and on their side, you become part of that system because of the human nature to fit in. Crucially, moreover, there's a psychological impact. When you are militarized, as the police is, panel, when you're wearing guns, it becomes far easier for you to pull the trigger. You become more prone to violence. I want to point out, panel, on their side of the house, when you see Trump put the picture of the dead African policeman, that's when you, as a black policeman, go, oh my God, they might kill me if I'm a police officer. I have to kill them before they kill us. Note, the psychology changes. You become an active propagator of this violence because you are fitted out like a soldier. We told you, panel, on our side of the house, you are no longer turned into a monster that goes against your own people. On our side of the house, you are able to think.
Your time is.
Proud to prepare.
Thank you for your speech. And I would like to call opposition whip to close the debate here.
Okay, does everybody listen to me? Ismail, are you okay?
I can hear you, just confirmation. You're audible.
Okay, before my speech, I would just ask you guys to call points of information in the chat, not in the voice. That being said, may I start, Chair?
Whenever you're ready.
Let's engage first with opening opposition. The argument is the change comes from the occupation of power positions. The problem with that case is that they don't consider the situation, the real case, that black people are not in power positions. They can be as only one person, and this debate should be read as how only one person, one fish in the sea, can make a change by leaving or staying in the police station. And again, open opposition fails to show how only one person can make a change. And we show that first by comfort. New policemen that are struggling to enter in the police system can have more comfort if they have a colleague that is also a black people. Report. If me as a black people go to doing actions in the society, policial actions, black people can trust more in me because we have the instinctive report to not harm my ethnicity. So there is a report system. And third, the approach, because black policemen will not approach in an abusive form with the common black folk. And that's not a case of closing opposition. It's simple math. If I can handle with three people a day, three black people a day, without being abused, there is more than 2,000 people a year not suffering from the hands of the police. In our case, we should consider this debate in two situations. One, me as a black people, I leave the police station, and another black people takes my place. That makes no difference. So it's the opposition world. Second case, if I leave the police station, white people will take my place. And that's the possible worst case of the government. The best case is the opposition work. The worst case is the government work. And being white people in the police station, we can have all these benefits that Alexia, closing opposition, shows more than first opposition. So that's why the second wins above the first. Now let's engage with opening government. They say that police portrays the white dominance, and we agree that police today is a racist system, but police is not racist by itself. It's not inherently racist system. In which work we can make a change, considering that the police system is racist, where I, as a black person in the police station, may have a difference. They say that they can protest if they leave the police station. The problem is we still have all the civilian rights we have outside the police, we have it inside, because police is a civil organization, not a military organization. So all the people inside the police can have their manifestations, can go to riots, suppose that they are not in the job, in the experience. So if they are not in high position, it doesn't make difference if you leave or not, because it will not make any noise. But if you go to protest while being a policeman inside the police station, you can make more noise than not being in that situation. So we should read this debate again as how only one people make a difference, not by all the black policemen leaving the police station, because that's not the debate. they say also that leaving the job can enhance the protest. But let's take again the case of Alexia. We have only one police officer. If he is inside the police, it's more power to affect the people. So you enhance more the protest, the riots by not being aggressive, not killing black men, not harming your ethnicity. But if you are out the police station, you are only one people among other thousands of people, and you have a very small power. It's a very low enhancement on that protests. So if you are inside, you have much more power to not harm the people. If you are outside, you are the victim. You are the hashtag. You can do more while being in the city, even not in the higher status of the police, but just being inside. And her case of friendship, it's like you can imagine the very popular TV show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There is a black police officer that is Terry Crews, and while being their friends, acting in racist ways, Terry Crews can show, hey man, you are being racist right now. And because they are friends, they can engage with the argument and create a self-criticize and change their approach. So only being one people, I can first, only by not acting abusive, I can make the life of thousands of people every year better. And second, I can have more influence with my friends to change the system, even if a little bit. If everybody does a little, it makes a big difference because it will have more black police officers in the system. As Alexa said, in their case of comfort, that more people will not struggle to enter in the system. Engaging now with closing government, and that's how I show if Alexa wins all the other houses, we win the debate. They say that they will follow orders without question. But Alexa shows, and that's a very more explicit analysis, that no order can be stronger than a natural rapport and empathy towards your ethnicity. So they can tell me to be abusive against a black people. They can, but instinctively, no one will harm their own group. So the stronger natural and instinctive analysis is more stronger than only claim that black people will just follow orders like they are kind of robots, that not analysis at all in their case. And the other point, that is the living police, you have the experience that what's going on inside, but if you're still in the police, you will be the most actual experience. You are living that case. So you can, being a protest at day and being a policeman at night, you can make difference in both worlds, even making better things for the police and better things for the black community. So it's in every work, in every situation, it's better to not leave the police station. Very proud to post.
Thank you for your speech and thank you for this. So just an announcement, you will not call now, meaning ranking, or back based on the last information that I have. You should be rankings, meaning you made it to the semifinals. So there shouldn't be any rounds tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, meaning finals on Sunday. So good luck in further, and hope to see some of you in the semifinals. Thank you again. Judges, move to the deliberation.